How do we play Price is Right in the real estate world? Well, my name is Veronica Morss. I am your local Eastside and Seattle real estate broker, and today we're talking about pricing your home right as a seller. Now, our markets, especially nationwide, are changing, but especially in the Greater Seattle, ours changes very quickly. So it's important to kind of keep on top of things, and pricing right is so important on our market because buyers are just so savvy now, and one little mistake could cost you time and money, and no one likes to lose that. So let's talk about comps first and how I initially look for in terms of comparable sales. So when I am comparing the subject property, your home, I look at active, I look at pending, I look at sold, I also look at expired and canceled. So what that means is that active, in my opinion, is your competition. I go back and I say, okay, and if your home's a 2,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, I'm looking at kind of the surrounding neighborhoods. I start far and I come back in and I narrow it in. But if we're looking at 3-2s, I'm going to be looking at 2-bedroom plus just to see if I need a plus minus for a bedroom. At a 2,000 square foot home, I'm kind of going from, I don't know, maybe 1,500 to 2,500 square feet, again, just to plus minus and start there and see what I can find. Your active homes are your competitors. You are competing for buyers with that other house. So I compare that first. Pending properties, I think, are they're most important. When I look at pending properties, it means that what's working now. There was buyers that found value in those pending properties most recently. So what I do is I call the listing agent. I say, hey, how many offers did you receive? What was the traffic like? If it was on the market for a while, I take that into consideration. But those pending properties are, to me, the most important, knowing what's happening and what's working and what buyers are finding value in right now. Now, sold properties are what worked. So you have what's trying to work with active, what worked with pending, and then what, worked recently with sold homes. Personally, I start my search, 6 months, but honestly, 90 days and even shorter is going to be the most accurate, especially in our market. 90 days can even be too much. So I start big with the solds. I take a look. If there's enough data, if there's enough sold properties in the last 30 to 60, 90 days, then I'm going to narrow it down even more and keep doing that until I get the most data that I can. But the sold properties, again, are what worked. So we see, okay, what was the list price? What was the sale price? How many days on market was it? There's often comments if there was concessions, meaning, hey, did the seller give away any credits that aren't reflected in the price? So all things that we really take into consideration. I don't even use comps 6 months back unless we're in a specific development, like a condo building, or if it's a really particular neighborhood that is unique and doesn't have a lot of other comparable homes in it. So that's the only time I will go further than 6 months or further, but really trying to narrow it down. Hey, if anything sold in the last couple days, then I go to 2 weeks, 30 days, 60 days. You get the gist of it. But with sold homes, it's really about what's most recent. Again, it's what buyers are finding value in today. Okay. Now, other things to take into consideration when we're pricing a home. So comparables, definitely. I set up a search that will tell me every time a new home comes up, goes pending, is sold in that area, and I'm always letting my clients know. So they're kind of keeping a pulse on things as well. So then we go to unique features. We have waterfront, we have lot size, we have if they're penthouses or corner units on a condo building, we're still going to plus minus a lot for that. And then last but not least, we have updates as well. And essentially, it's hard to put a value sometimes. When you're not in the home, you can't see what finishes they use, or they don't even really explain what finishes you use. So we do a little, comparison as much as we can. If your home is not updated and the most recent comparable was updated, how do we value how much cost it would take and also how much time it would take a buyer to get the home to that comparable of remodeling? So it all goes with plus minus, but in the end, we're really waiting until that very last minute to price the home, so that before list date, so that we are we have the most recent data as we possibly can. Now, there's multiple ways to price a home. After we look at those comparables, and I'm going to say you have You start high, which is what I call finding, your unicorn buyer. You price at the market value, which is going to, market to a greater pool of buyers. And then you're going to list it a little bit under market value, where you're really trying to attract as much of a pool as you can. So when pricing high, what I found in this market, and I know a lot of sellers want to say, let's just see what happens. That's the worst thing they can say. Let's just see what happens. Pricing it high, you're finding your unicorn buyer, because the buyers are so savvy nowadays. They know that home seems a little bit high. I'm going to wait for it to either come down. I'm going to see what happens, but I'm not even going to go there yet. I'm just going to hold off for a little bit. Okay. So you're looking for that unicorn buyer that will come in. And once that unicorn buyer, it takes a while for that unicorn buyer if it comes. So what happens is a home is priced high. All the buyers that are savvy, looking at a market value or below, are now going, I'm going to skip it and wait, see what happens. And then it stays on market longer, right? And then every home that's been on market for, depending on where you are in the nation and what your market is, buyers are going to go, what's wrong with it? It's been on the market. I'm just going to skip it. And that's what happens. So you start high, you don't get as much eyeballs on your property, then it sits on market, and then buyers feel that there's something wrong with it. And when a buyer finally does come around, they go, oh, well, this has been on the market for a while. I'm going to write a low offer and see what happens with it. So, and oftentimes that same offer is what you would have gotten at the market value if you would have priced it, or if probably a little bit less. And now not only have you sat on market, you've wasted money in your mortgage, your property taxes. If you were on the market for 30, 60 days, that's just, you could have been closed and that could have been taken care of. So that's why I call the unicorn pricing high is not the right strategy. For many, the market value or the pricing low are great strategies. The market value, again, buyers are going, hey, this seems like it's priced well. If there's not a lot of inventory on the market, you're going to still get a swarm of buyers and hopefully get that price point up. Now, next is going to be pricing it just a tad bit under market value, and it's difficult to come to terms with that right away. But if your agent is doing a good job, and again, keeping it pulse on the market every single day, they're going to know, okay, if we price it just a tad bit under market value, it's going to open up, because we like to manipulate the searches, right? If we're priced at $1 million, some people have their max or minimum at $1 million. If we open it to $995, then we're opening it up to a new round of buyers or whatever it may be. So if we price it low, we are going to a whole new, round of buyers here, and we get that momentum of multiple offers. Now, oftentimes when buyers are in the heat of it, especially if it's a busy market, seller's market, and if there's not a lot of inventory, they're going to know that that home is worth more than what it's listed at. So they're actually willing to go higher. And once you get people in that escalation, what we call it here, most of the times it's not only the price that goes over the market value, but it's also terms. Because if you can't close a home, it doesn't matter what the price is. So that way we have favorable terms. People are offering waived this, waived financing, inspection, appraisal. So not only do you have a higher price because people did the multiple escalations and bidding, you also now have a really, really easy, clean closing because you have no contingencies. And as a seller, it's not much you have to worry about besides packing up and getting out of the house. So when we're talking about prices, right, this is how we go about looking at comparables, pricing a home correctly. Of course, it all depends on your goals as well. But if you're in the market to sell your home in the Greater Seattle area, we're happy to have this conversation with you, and we look forward to working with you in 2025.